you know what they say, there's no time better than the present. So let's talk spoilers. We're talking about the Backrooms movie, in case you are wondering, and if you want to see my spoiler-free review, it's up on my channel. You can go check it out now. If you haven't seen the movie, highly recommend it. I highly recommend you go into seeing this movie blind, because there are a lot of things out there on the internet of people saying it, their opinions about if the movie was really good or really bad, and I'd rather you go in blind before we jump into it. So this is your warning, spoilers. Alright, let's get into it. The big thing that surprised me the most about the Backrooms movie was actually learning about sort of the reception to the movie. Like, I am glad that I went in blind. I didn't play the game until after, or we did play the game before we went to go see the movie. That was sort of our little condition, is like, hey, my friend and I streamed the Backrooms game actually on my channel. You can go check it out now. But we wanted to sort of get an understanding of what the Backrooms was. I knew about a little bit about the lore. I did watch Kane Pixel's little short on it that was actually really well done. I still think it's a phenomenal video that he made that basically encapsulates what the Backrooms are for a lot of people. And I was so excited that he got to helm this movie, because this is something that, you know, he put a lot of creativity into when he was still a teenager. A lot of people like to discount that, but it is so impressive that that video managed to be very tense, lots of suspense, and just this drawn out, like, almost like heart racing, just like fear within someone because of fear of the unknown. What is the Backrooms? What are in the Backrooms? Both the furniture you see, the clipped objects, whether it's lights going through walls or, you know, things stuck within the walls, not like literally slammed into a wall, but like literally clipping through it, like, you know, it shouldn't exist. So things of that nature. And there's, of course, these entities, these monsters within the Backrooms. So sort of bringing that to life within his short, I think, definitely deserved him the opportunity to make a Backrooms movie. And let me just say, there's already, and we're going to jump into spoilers now, so last warning, the big thing for me going into this movie was I wanted to sort of experience the Backrooms all over again from a visionary, Kane Parsons, who made that video all those years ago on YouTube that went mega viral. And people like to discount him because he's just a YouTuber who had a big lucky break. And I say, bah humbug to these people. Absolutely not. I mentioned this in my spoiler-free review. You will not get away with this. You will not get away with discrediting Kane Parsons' work, especially when it came to YouTube, and especially when it comes to here. Are there problems with this movie? Yes, we will get into them. However, I feel like people calling it the worst movie ever, comparing it to Obsession, and everything under the sun, I just feel like it's just inaccurate. And I stand firmly where I actually don't think it's a good movie. I think it's a great movie. And call me crazy, but there's a lot of people, someone mentioned that it could be like the CEOs of all these major studios on their alt accounts trying to trash the movie and engagement farm. But, which is a funny theory. Not proven, but not disproven. But I think it's just sort of crazy that a lot of people are dogpiling this movie, saying it was awful, didn't make sense, no story, all style, no substance, and I just disagree. So let's get into it. I feel like there are flaws within this movie. Let's talk about the characters real quick. So the main person, there's two main characters throughout the whole movie that we follow. There's a guy named Clark who is a failed architect who runs a furniture store that has no customers, always on sale, and it's always that tacky commercial you see on TV of like, come here, you don't need any credit, no background reviews, come in, all these furniture items are on sale. So come on in, buy whatever you want, even though the place looks run down, the furniture isn't in the best condition. It's basically like secondhand items acquired, you know, kind of like that. Like they don't even make the furniture. It's like probably bought and resold. So it's basically like this run-down furniture store, not like IKEA, like lower-end IKEA, and that's basically who Clark is. He's someone who is down on his luck. You know, his wife left him, kicked him out of the house, and he's running this furniture store. He's a failed architect, so everything that he wanted to do in life has basically amounted to nothing. There's nothing special about this person. And that's where we get introduced to our another very, very important character, which is our character of Mary. And Dr. Mary is the therapist helping Clark through his situation. So we have Mary and Clark taking us through the story. Now, the story, as much as people like to say there isn't one, it's just scenes happen, which no shit, it's a movie, right? But I like to believe that this movie's story is the story of how this average guy, actually less than average guy with this random shop in the middle of nowhere, which they actually do highlight the death of the outlets and the death of malls, especially in today's society, because a lot of people don't like to talk about that, where all these things that you grew up with within the 90s and 80s, where you'd go shopping at malls and outlets and it's sort of like a social activity to hang out, that's no longer a reality for a lot of places because of Amazon. Because of convenience, no one is going out anymore and shopping in the same capacity. They still are, but not to the same degree. And the shopping outlet that, you know, Clark's store is, his furniture store, is like a telltale sign that this is a reflection of current day society, where, you know, it's basically the Spirit Halloween, you know, like sooner or later, Spirit Halloween is gonna appear on his storefront because he's gonna go bankrupt any moment, right? Like, he's having trouble with bills and lighting and trying to get customers through the door. So he's already in like a really rough place. And what I did like about that idea and where Kane Parsons was going with this is he's introducing someone who is severely flawed, someone who has nothing going for him, and therefore when he discovers the Backrooms later on, especially with I thought a really cool way, which is he was messing with the light switches and it wasn't immediately found, it was him messing with things. He was noticing clues of things that are off, and then he discovers the Backrooms. And so the reason why I feel like Kane Parsons made Clark such a broken character from the start was because he wanted there to be nothing going for him. And then he finds the Backrooms, and that is where he becomes obsessed with the Backrooms, because that's something new, something that, you know, it belongs in his store, and it's a discovery. And he even ropes in his employees, both I think their names were Kat and Bobby. They get roped in into helping him explore the Backrooms, and that becomes a whole part of his identity, which plays on later on when we meet, you know, Pirate Clark, you know, and the still lives and his whole conversation with Dr. Mary, right? So I do like that approach. The story is a broken man finds some glimmer of hope to do something with his life and making his life worthwhile by exploring the Backrooms. That becomes a whole part of him, especially when he loses everything around him. Now, the second part of the story is Dr. Mary, like, coming to terms with her own past trauma, especially when her mother was admitted to a psych ward. She was taken away because her mother was basically crazy, and paranoid too, and that was highlighted throughout the film. But it's also like sort of her relationship with Clark that pulls her into the Backrooms. And so that's the story, in my opinion. People like to pretend there is no story. I feel like that is the story. However, a lot of it is lost because the Backrooms is a character within itself. And this is where people like to accuse the movie of being all style, no substance. But, like, here's the thing. I disagree. I think the film is all style, a little bit of substance. Could there be a lot of things that flush out these characters a lot more and making those character arcs more believable and well-rounded? Absolutely. But that's not a problem of no story at all. I just feel like the story just needs a little bit of work, and the writing with certain scenes and how they play out in the middle section of the film to help round out all three acts. And that's all you need. I don't think it's an issue with he doesn't know how to write a movie. Because I thought the movie was really good, despite, you know, things... I just feel like things could have been better, but it's not like it's unsalvageable, like it's like the worst movie ever, or he doesn't know what he's doing, you know? And people were also trying to describe, like, why is he getting a second chance? Why is he giving this big chance to direct a big feature film with Blumhouse and A24? And I'm just like, why are we being jealous of Kane Parsons? If anything, we should be supporting him. The people you should be upset with are the major studios that keep directors who are playing it safe with what they want. We want more experimental films like this. We want to push the boundaries of what it means to be a filmmaker and who we see a filmmaker as. Like the whole movie, like I'll go back to one of my favorite animated movies, Ratatouille. The whole premise of artistry and especially culinary art in the movie Ratatouille isn't everyone can cook. That was like the whole tagline. But what you realize and discover throughout the film is the idea behind everyone can cook isn't that everyone can. It's a good cook can come from anywhere. And I think that's true with filmmaking. Why are we always going for, you know, you need years of experience, like decades within the industry to then make it big? And even then, we won't give you that chance. Why are we looking down at young filmmakers? Like, and I mentioned this before, Obsession, I haven't seen it, but from good word of mouth and what my friends have told me, it is one of the best horror movies they have seen in this year, and debatable of all time. Now, I haven't seen it yet. I have to watch it for myself, but I feel like Backrooms is the same way, where this has been sort of a historical precedent because this is the first time we're letting young filmmakers get a big break, and we're giving attention and opportunities to those who really have a lot of talent behind them. They're very talented people. So, like, instead of like just bashing the movie for being flawed, we should look at this as like, yeah, it just needs a little bit of tweaking, but it's a pretty good movie, and that's how I feel about it. And some people also are like, well, I don't know about the Backrooms lore, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, and that's fine. That's more of things to work on for the general audience as opposed to something against the filmmaker, you know? Maybe he could have introduced the Backrooms in a better way or explained some things better that happen within the Backrooms. Which my argument is some of the things don't need explaining. That's the horror of the Backrooms, is you don't know what you're looking at. I was surprised they actually gave away more explanations in this film than actually needed. Like, some of the things I felt like you could have just left it as is, and it remains creepy for that reason, because you don't know what you're looking at, you know? Especially when it came to the still lives. But yeah, so like the biggest thing for me let me go back into what I would fix. My biggest problem with the Backrooms movie is actually the writing between the relationship between Mary and Clark, because they have a conversation at the start where they break down that, you know, Clark is kind of messed up in the head. There's hints that he could be abusive for sure throughout the film. He constantly belittles his wife because she's going to school to get a better paying job. Meanwhile, he's blaming her for his failure of not being an architect, for running a rundown store. The reason why he's getting no customers is because his wife isn't helping him, which again it's a problem. It's a problem with this character. But like the way that the film, I think, could have been done so much better and had a bigger payoff in that dinner scene, which I think was amazing, from like a way to set it up to make it just unsettling and disturbing, especially when he cut up the one of the silhouettes, like the man, and he like cut up his belly and like put it on the plate, and there's like this saliva on it, and they didn't react at all. Like that was all good in my opinion. That was like really, really good. That was like, what am I looking at? This is frightening. But what would have added to the conversation at the dinner scene where she's like, you're going crazy. I just wish there was another scene between the two of them where they did kind of do a time skip where Clark kind of disappeared and would revisit the Backrooms over and over again, and then he brought in both Kat and Bobby to then film it. I wish we got more of, and this is of course extending the runtime of the Backrooms movie, I get that, but I wish I had more of Clark continuously going back into the Backrooms, and then him, over the course of him going back and forth, telling Mary about it, and then Mary sort of reaching a breaking point of like, you're lying. Like, I didn't understand why why Clark got so upset with Mary when she didn't believe him the first time. I think what would have been more believable is Clark was telling her about the Backrooms over the course of multiple sessions, because he kept revisiting it, and he would tell her after every trip to the Backrooms, it would be a different session, and then slowly she would be like listening to him, and then she would just break to him like, I'm so sorry. Like, she loses composure, like, you're just crazy, I'm gonna prescribe you meds. And that breaking point is like, Clark's like, no, but you have to believe me. Like, I'm telling you, why would I lie about all this? Like, I'm very detailed with my explanations. And Mary just refuses to believe him. And I think what would have been so cool is you get to a point where, technically at this point of the film, Mary is his only rock, the therapist, an outlet for him to talk about his issues in life. And so for her to not believe him anymore, that makes him lose it, and then that's why he recruits Kat and Bobby to be like, I'm gonna prove this to Mary and demand she gives me an apology. And then they go down, and then the same events happen. And then of course he gets stuck down there, Mary goes looking for him, and then we have that dinner scene, and then that adds so much more. That's what I think was missing, is the connective tissue between the conflict between the two characters. Because I don't know, Clark was just way too upset at Mary for no reason, in my opinion, or very little reason, because they didn't really reach that conflict, you know? They just kind of had a disagreement, he left, and then, you know, all the events happened. So that's how I would change sort of the middle part to like enhance the last act of the film. But like, I think the found footage, again, let's go back to sort of like the good parts of the film. The found footage, every single time they went to found footage, it was spectacular. It was definitely the best part of the film. Not only was the opening amazing with the obscure scientist dude like navigating the maze, trying to signal for help, and then the monster shows up, but before, of course, it's the bird. The bird jump scares you, and then you're already freaking out, like, what the heck is going on? And then you slowly see that figure appear, and then he's running and running, trying to escape, and then it catches him. That was phenomenal. I would have loved if we got a lot more scenes of that, not even in this movie, but in the future, of like, this is how found footage should be, especially when it's like in the DNA of the Backrooms lore, you know, especially with Kane Parsons' work earlier on YouTube. So like, all that was great. I really liked when Clark was filming and trying to get evidence to then show Mary that he wasn't going crazy, that the Backrooms actually do exist. And then of course that, you know, him, Bobby, and Kat go into the Backrooms, are filming, and the moment they were going down that hill, you know, that slant where he's like, oh yeah, that's pretty steep, and they were joking about like, if I die, tell my mom I love her. I'm like, he's dying. There's so many death flags in here. I'm like, there's no way they're walking out without a casualty or a major injury, you know? And the moment he went down into that den, I'm like, yeah, that's the monster's lair. There's no way he's not running for his life. And I like how they did it, where he actually escapes, but then the rope pulls him. And it's really cool because this entire time, and this is why I think the first Jaws movie is such a great horror movie, and why the Backrooms during this scene is so phenomenal, is because you don't see Pirate Clark yet. You just hear a monster. And when the rope pulls on him, and he's screaming for his life, to save his life, to cut him free, and then he gets yanked down. And then they both get pulled down, and they're tumbling. That is descending into hell, and that was so beautifully done. And then you have the whole chase sequence. You see Cat running after Bobby, even though you know he's pretty much dead. And then you have, of course, Clark running around. That Christmas tree scene was absolutely horrifying. I didn't know what to expect, but the audience I was with in the theaters gasped. And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? What is happening? And yeah, the whole light, him toggling the light, and then that thing coming out, the still life of the lady coming out. I don't know yet if that was his wife or not. I know we saw some photos. People were like, yeah, that's his wife. But I also feel like it could also just be some random redhead woman that Clark uses later on in the dinner scene to resemble his wife. So I don't know if it was or not. I feel like it's too close to tell, you know? There's not enough evidence to support it. Actually, sorry, not too close to tell. Not enough evidence to support that theory, if that makes sense. So, the whole scene of like him running, then he ends up in the pool rooms. I thought that was really cool because it's going through the different like areas of the backroom games, and you know the lore, and you know he gets to the end, and to me, this is where the film gets, and this is the best point of the film, is he puts down the camera, runs to a wall, and Kat is on the other side of the wall, screaming, asking for help. I see you, I can't get in, I need to get to you. And right as Clark is trying to help her out, the camera gets picked up by something. And Clark turns around and sees something. And then it cuts. That was so good, especially for found footage. Just the idea of something grabbing the camera and you get the POV of the monster. And the film, I think, is still pretty good after that point. Like, the dinner scene is really cool. I think the reveal of Pirate Clark was... a lot of people didn't like Pirate Clark. They didn't like how he looked. They didn't like how they revealed him and it became less scary because he was unknown, which I get. I understand that. But for me, I didn't mind it because it was sort of like a full circle moment for Clark's character of like, he is someone who is so broken, if the Backrooms try to replicate him, he turned out like a monster because he's not a good person. And you saw that within the dinner scene. Like, at the start, you felt bad for him because you thought he died, but then when he turns out he survived, then he, like, you know, of course, choked out Mary, tied her up, and then it reveals that he's actually kind of like a messed up person in the head. That I thought was really, really good. It's just to show the monster being him, and a reflection of him in a sense. So I thought all that was good. The chase sequence I thought was good. The thing I would change though, about the whole scene, is when you reveal Pirate Clark as, you know, the menacing monster coming in, and then of course he kills Clark in a very, very good way. Like, he sort of just like hugs him, and Clark, I think, feels like he's like his ugly side is comforting him. It's almost symbolic, but it turns out no, he just takes a giant bite out of his shoulder, and it's graphic, but the crunch sound effect and the horror of seeing, you know, a man who finally learned the error of his ways being eaten by his own sins, I thought was not only poetic, but like very, very cool for the film to pull off. And then of course Mary escapes, runs away. You have the whole chase sequence, and that's where people feel like the movie sort of loses its momentum and becomes less scary. Now, what I will say is if I were to improve people's perception of the movie and making it a lot, maintain that tension and that fear factor present within like the found footage where that he's running through rooms, it's barely visible, you got lights going on, because the lighting and set design and everything around the Backrooms film I think is like 11 out of 10, phenomenal, like one of the best visually looking horror films I think I've seen. I think what they could have done, especially for that final sequence, is even though there are creepy moments of him like standing when she's trying to escape but can't leave the store because she's still in the back rooms, and you see him standing there looking at her, that was horrifying. Him crawling on her as like she passes out, horrifying, right? Especially with the gas and she passes out for a second. I think would have made this film even better is if when Pirate Clark kills Clark and she runs away, she realizes she's on the deeper floors of the backrooms. Therefore, the lighting isn't as bright, it's darker, and so you still have the same scenes of her running away, trying to escape, but Pirate Clark is still obscured with shadow. You can still make him out because it's revealed to what he looks like, but you still have that, I don't know where I'm going. It's dark out. I can't see where I am. I'm tripping over things. I feel like that would have added to more of the tension if you had scenes like earlier where, you know, Clark was running through after Bobby died, Cat chased after him, and he was sprinting away because, you know, the monster showed up too, right? So, just something of like, they're deeper in the back rooms, Pirate Clark is chasing Mary, and you can barely make out what you're seeing, but we're going through more levels of the back rooms, and maybe she trips and falls, gets even deeper in the back rooms, and then you can lead up to, you know, her going through a wall, then being saved. I think that would have kept the tension and made it a much more fulfilling experience than just seeing him in broad daylight. I think that's what people have a gripe with, is you lose a lot of the things that made the back room scary. It's liminal space, right? So it's light, but then there's shadow being cast around every corner, so you can't really make out everything around you, and that's what's scary, is what's lurking in the shadow, what shadowy figures are present. So what you can't see is horrifying. So those are like the kind of like the two big major changes I would make to fix the film. But I've seen so many movies from people decades in the industry that have films that are, in my opinion, much worse and much more just generating the same slop, whether it comes to horror movies, when it comes to action movies, especially when it comes to found footage, you know, that's been milked to death. Backrooms is a found footage film. It is. There are moments of found footage, but it's Kane Parsons, the guy who made that short when he was still a teenager, you know, of the Backrooms. So you got to give it a pass when, you know, the guy who made a short that added significantly to the lore of the Backrooms utilized found footage. I also like to give props to the way it was done. Like I explained how they were going through different rooms. You could still make out what you were seeing, and it added to the creepiness of like Clark running away, you know. They used the camcorder to show that, you know, this is for plot reasons. They wanted evidence of the back rooms. There's a reason why they were using this type of camera and why the film looked this way during certain moments, and that was fine. But it also added to, what the hell am I looking at? I can't really make out what I'm seeing. And especially with that, and I mentioned this earlier, the monster picking up the camera. I've never really seen that done with found footage in the same way that Kane Parsons managed to do it. So I want to give him props. And I guess I've been talking for almost 30 minutes now. I know, spoiler review, we talked a lot about Backrooms, but I just wanted to wrap up my point by just saying, to all the naysayers out there, I think you should give Backrooms another rewatch. I feel like if you approach it more as this is how the film is, try not to attach labels to it, Try not to say this is the worst film ever. Stop listening to Twitter because they're a bunch of idiots, you know. Form your own original thoughts. You'll see there's a lot of value within the Backrooms beyond it just being just style. Because if it was an awful film, I wouldn't be saying, hey, Kane Parsons should make these tweaks to flesh out the characters, make their motivations a lot more believable, and keeping the horror aspect and the tension throughout the entire film instead of losing it because, because you can see a lot more and the monster becomes less scary because, you can see him. There's less to fear because there's less to hide. Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up. I am excited, though, if Kane Parsons decide to make a Backrooms sequel or more stuff about the Backrooms or just movies in general. I feel like this is his time to shine, and I think we should support him because him and Curry Barker are paving the way to young filmmakers. And I think that's what this industry desperately needs, especially in a time of AI takeover. Especially in a time where, a lot of studios take their artists for granted. I mean, just look at how many projects become tax write-offs, how much these studios end up becoming mergers and absorbing, like the whole Warner Brothers situation, right, where it was going to Netflix, now it's going to Paramount, and I don't even know what's going to happen there. So if you want to save cinema, this is how you do it, is by supporting it. Don't have to love their films, don't have to say they're perfect. You can even hate the Backrooms film. I'm not saying that that's not within your right. All I'm saying is at least be accurate and give it a chance and be honest with your review. Don't just regurgitate the same talking points without any, evidence or reasoning behind what you say. Because if you do that, well, then we get nowhere. We end up in the same place where we keep getting the same slop from studios with big name actors, and that's it. So, just want to wrap up here. What was that? What was that? Did you guys hear that? I'm gonna be right back. Give me 1 second.
Hold on. Get out of my way! Hurry, open that door. Wait, we probably need to go downstairs.
Downstairs? Where's the stairs?
These things? It's not a stairwell, it's more of a...
Whoa! Whoa!